All right, I have 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Start with our pledge of allegiance. Scott's going to do this.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our November 18th.
Move that we approve the minutes of November 18th regular meeting.
Second.
Comments, questions, suggested revisions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, next item is appointments. Don't think we have any.
I have nothing.
No old business. First item under new business is referral of the right to farm ordinance to the planning and zoning and development commissions. Mike, you want to do this?
Just a brief bit of background. My understanding is the Agricultural Commission drafted this. Peggy Chappell was good enough to help them. And I think you had some input, Mark. So now it is time to take the edited draft and send it over to both Planning and Zoning and the Development Commission for review and comment. And we simply, the motion asks that both commissions review it and return any issues or questions to the Board of Selectmen within 90 days.
Just a reminder to everybody, I think this is one of the 2 items that the Ag Commission asked us to consider in our goals and objectives. And when Heather was here giving the Ag Commission's report, she specifically asked us to consider adopting a right to farm ordinance. Peggy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we asked the Ag Commission to consider, and I believe they've sent back to us, what we're doing is codifying word for word the state's statute on right to farm so that we don't create any conflicts or any potential ambiguities. And it does look like to me that's what they're asking us to refer on. So,
Yeah, that was the intent, was to ensure that the ordinance was consistent with the state statute, and I'm pretty confident that it does.
so if we are so inclined, I think at that time we talked about the next steps would be referred to the 2 commissions to get any comments that they have. So if it is the board's pleasure to do that, I would accept the proposed motion.
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen refer the attached draft right to farm ordinance as prepared by the Town of Granby Agricultural Commission to both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Development Commission for review and comment, and to further request that both commissions return any comments to the Board of Selectmen within the 90 days.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, next item on the agenda is approval of a donation policy and acceptance of a donation of a granite bench. Mike?
So, Mark, there's 2 things going on here. The first one is the creation of a donation policy, and within the donation policy, it simply establishes guidelines to ensure that donations occur at arm's length, provide criteria and process for the acceptance of those donations, and then confirm the authority of the town manager to accept and spend donations. The donation policy includes a definition, how do we accept donations, the authority to accept and then spend cash. In instances where it's not in the town's best interest, how do we decline a donation? How do we account for costs associated with any proposed donation if it requires maintenance and so forth? And then acknowledgements, forms, and receipts. So it really doesn't do anything ground or earth-shattering, but it creates a level playing field with respect to the very good and generous people of the town of Granby when they come forward. And I'll give you an example. Deb Kolich was instrumental in securing over $8,000 in donations from local groups, businesses, and individuals. And you have a very beautiful, lovely clock at the entrance to Town Hall as a result of that. Mark and I talked a little bit about that. In the future, there'll be some additional recognition with respect to that coming before the board. But this is first the adoption of the policy. But along the way, and you've known I've been here for about 9 months, I have received no fewer than about 5 different individuals that have come forward. Deb is one of them with the clock. I had another couple of individuals who wanted to recognize a dear departed friend. They would like to donate a bench or a tree. We talked about the creation of a quiet portion of the park. As you know, we're doing a park and recreation study. Those bids came in today. We haven't reviewed them, but part of that will be how can we create a small section of the park to accommodate some of this stuff. In any case, the second portion of this is we had a Miss Jill Crooker on behalf of longtime Granby residents David and Joanne Boyden. They would like to place outside the library a rose granite bench engraved with the Tree of Life in memory of their daughter Lynn. And the connection of Granby and Lynn has everything to do with Lynn working at the library when she was in high school. So the second part of this motion, number 1, is we adopt the donation policy. And number 2, Amber Wysick from the library is aware of this and supports it. I think it's a beautiful gesture. I would like the board to support it as well. And if indeed we all agree that we should accept the memorial bench, I'll then go prepare the extension of thanks and appreciation to both Miss Jill Crocker and Mr. and Mrs. David and Joanne Boyden. So two-part motion. I think it's a positive for the community and would wholeheartedly recommend it.
Questions, comments?
The only question I have is, do you think $100 is the right threshold, or is it too low?
You know, I don't know, I think anybody who reaches into their wallet and donates something deserves recognition from the town. If it proves to be too time-consuming, I'll come back and ask that it be raised to $250 or $500. But for now, it feels right.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Anybody else? If not, I would accept the proposed motion.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the attached donation policy for the town of Granby to be administered by the town manager. Additionally, on behalf of the town of Granby, we accept the generous donation of a memorial bench in memory of Lynn for the installation at the town of Granby Library, and wish to extend our sincerest thanks and appreciation to Jill Crooker and Mr. and Mrs. David and Joanne Boyden.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, motion carried. Next item on our agenda is a presentation of the +1 budget. Mike, before I turn it over to you, just a reminder to everybody in the audience, this is the very, very beginning of our extensive budget process. It's the very high level of where we think the budget is going. Just identify certain trends and major issues. It has been our tradition in the past, which I would like to keep tonight unless you guys think otherwise, is to, if there are questions, to like very, very high level questions, we'll ask them. If not, we'll get them to Mike. We won't take action tonight. The plan is to take action in our first meeting in January, so there'll be plenty of time for you guys to review it and get questions to Mike and him prepare answers for our meetings, our first January meeting. Everybody okay with that general process?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, take it away, Mike.
All right. For those that are listening in the audience, this is the +1 budget. As Mark mentioned, it's a snapshot of both the condition of the town as well as the direction that the budget. In the budget, we are 5 months into the fiscal '25 year. This is a projection to the best of our ability based on what we know now for the period July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. So it really is a forward-looking budget. As Mark mentioned, +1 budgets are prepared by the town and the Board of Education. They are adopted by their respective boards, and then they are submitted to the Board of Finance at the 3-board meeting in mid-January. So we have a little bit of time before we get there. On page 1 of the document, I just wanted to provide some metrics for basically the last 3 fiscal years. And I won't go through every line, but these are the important lines that I look at. And the first one is unassigned fund balance. You'll notice in 2023, you were just under 11 million, and at June 30th, 2024, you're just under 7 million. Number one, as we work toward a policy of 15% unassigned fund balance, we are in an enviable shape compared to most other municipalities, 15% as a percent of the budget. The reason it is down from just under 11 to just under 7 is the radio project. You were holding a considerable amount of money in unassigned fund balance until the voters said, hey, yes, let's move ahead with this radio project. So that money transfers out. We also have pension funds of about 21.5 million. We had a very good return on investment, so we sit at almost 5 million, and that's after making a considerable amount of payments to our retirees. Excuse me, our pension funding as a community went from 85% to just under 94%. Again, enviable by most every other municipality in the state of Connecticut. Pension discount rate is also extremely important. The town has chosen 6.5%. Many other towns are at 7, 7.5. There's even a couple of outliers out there at 7.75. The significance of the discount rate is the lower it is, the more conservative your forecast is. So that is a good thing to have set low, and it will only mean that more times than not, you will make your earnings targets. The same is true with the OPEB. OPEB is an acronym for other post-employment benefits. Traditionally, it's things you provide in the form of a benefit to a retiree, and in this case, it's mostly medical benefits, lifetime medical benefits. That we don't provide except to public safety any longer. And currently, we are funded up from 51.4% to just under 55.7%. Now, that means we have a ways to go. However, the fact that we have a trust that is dedicated toward funding this is also an important step. We are a AA plus bond rating. We are on the cusp of even being a higher rated municipality, and that is because your fiscal practices are rock solid. Bonded debt is very low at 15.6 million at the end of 23. At the end of 24, 13.9 million, and it will be even lower than that after we make approximately 1.8 million of debt service payments. Collection rate, which is also another fiscal indicator that the bond rating agencies use, is right around 99%. Again, enviable. We have a grand list that was 1.1 billion. It is now 1.4 billion, and that is a result of the recent revaluation in the uptick related to COVID. That $1.4 billion grand list raises about $44.5 million related to a tax levy, and that's at 33.13 as the mill rate. 1% of the town budget is about $180,000. 1% of the board budget is $381,000. That's important as just a metric to walk around with. So anytime the town's budget has additional spending of 180, it's going up by 1%. Value of a mill is 1.3 million. So anytime we were to raise the mill from 33.13 to 34.13, you'll raise an additional 1,342,000. That's important to know because what you want to do when you balance the budget is you want to see some growth in the grand list, either new businesses coming or expanding, houses being worth more, or want to see a balance between growth and increases in the mill rate. If it's one or the other, that sometimes is not a good thing. To provide 1% growth in the grand list, you need just under $14 million, and that's at 70%. So you need almost a $20 million development to raise the grand list by 1. So that's a big number for a community with a $1.4 billion grand list. And then new revenue, when the grand list grows by 1%, produces about $462,000. So from a metric point of view, Granby is in an enviable position related to most other municipalities. When you make promises in the form of either labor contracts or retirement, you fund those promises. And that's very, very important, and that's a very, very good thing. And I've not been bashful in reminding the community or the various boards. On page 2 of the document, it briefly goes through the budget process, and at the end of the document, there's 2 pages that go into a considerable amount of detail. But basically, in November, the directors have prepared their estimates of operating and capital budgets. And the operative word there is capital budgets is now taking an appropriate place next to the operating budgets. I think they're equally important, and they're equally important for each board to see and then the community to understand. In December, which happened tonight, the CPAC began assessing capital priorities. In December, which is happening right now, I'm providing you with the +1 fiscal 26 narrative. In January, there'll be the 3-board meeting. In February, the Board of Finance will provide the board and the town with final budget guidance and mill rate targets. March, the budget workshops will begin. Those are open to the public. And in April, final budget adjustments will be made by the Board of Finance, and then the residents will vote. Taken together, some of the things you will see, which will be new this year, are an easier-to-read budget book. There'll be a budget workbook that will show the calculations and some of the background, and then a new PowerPoint for each department. I believe those will be more concise and precise as we move forward and complete the budget process. I've shown you the baseline budget in 2 ways, projecting forward. In terms of the town budget, which I'll break down in a minute, we have an increase of about $331,000, which is 2.4%. The inflation rate's about 3%, so that is fiscally contained. But we have reductions in debt service, and we have a little bit of an increase in the capital budget. So in total, the total town budget is moving up by about $366,000, which is just over 2%, 2.04%. Again, about 50% below the inflation rate of about 3%. Now, where are the key drivers? So permanent services is going up by $265,000. That is predominantly what we've done at the Board of Selectmen level to pay about 3% increases to whether it be the 4 collective bargaining units or the non-bargaining units. And that total is about $320,000. It's greater than the $265,000. So $320,000 is related to giving everybody what they call a cost of living adjustment. Additionally, if you recall, we've made 2 position eliminations. One position elimination was the Director of Parks and Recreation, and the second position elimination was the Assistant Director of Public Works. Those total about $205,000 of savings, so that reduces the $320,000. It's a one-time reduction. And then in this particular case, we've added an officer at $147,500, and I'll talk about the officer in a minute. But to get to the $265,000, it's $320,000 up, $150,000 up for a new officer, $200,000 down for 2 positions eliminations. Get you a truer picture of the $265,000. The second driver is medical and fringe benefits. As you may recall, in the collective bargaining agreements, we moved everybody from a preferred provider organization way of delivering medical benefits, which unfortunately is fairly cost prohibitive. We've moved them to a high deductible health plan with a $2,000, $4,000 first dollar deductible. That has saved us, including 2.9% medical inflation with the new Anthem projections. That has saved us $124,000 year over year. So that number is moving in the right direction. Retirement benefits are predominantly the increased costs of pension and other post-employment benefits. That's up $52,000. General government is a combination of things at $137,000, which I go to in more detail. It includes things like refuse collection. That's up $27,000. As the state of Connecticut reduces the ability of towns to dispose of their waste in-state. They must be trucked to out-of-state. There's additional costs for gasoline, overhead, profit, and so forth to the private entities that we use. So that totals $27,000. You have before you several contracts in the past. COT Systems is one of them. The town departments that rely on software created uniquely for municipalities is unfortunately getting more expensive, whether that's the town clerk's office, whether that's the tax collector's office, whether that's the assessor, all totaled, those are about $20,000 more than they were. We have mixed messaging on electricity, gas, diesel, and heating oil. We are coming off of a very beneficial electricity contract on the town side that we no longer enjoy with a rate of about 7 cents a kilowatt hour, a little bit more. We are now paying a little bit more than 9 cents a kilowatt hour. So while it's lower than the Eversource rate, it does represent a cost increase on the electricity side of about $17,000 more. However, more than offsetting that are favorable price decreases in gasoline, diesel, and heating oil, which are going to save us about $44,000 over the course of a year. And then there was a $22,000 item related to sewer charges that we never needed, so we removed it from the budget year over year. That'll save you about another 22. So in total, we've got 17 more for electricity, 47 down on all the other energy items. And then finally, as we recalibrate the organization, we are sending a few more people to professional development. We are sending a few more people to staff training. And of course, our professional services line with the KCE battery farm, push is going up year over year. So that's about 46,000. Last few comments I'll make. Capital funding, we look forward to the work that CPAC will do. Lease funding, we place a variety of leases for police cars, trucks, computers, and buses. When one is paid off, we put another into place. I'm not recommending anything different, simply to move the leases out of the capital fund to where they belong in the operating fund, if that can be done this year. Finally, debt service, it'll be relatively stable for the coming year, but in the next fiscal year, we will retire one of the 3 outstanding bonded indebtedness issues that we have, saving us $600,000. It will be up to the Board of Finance, after receiving CPAC's recommendations on priority, to help us size, and the Board of Education will do this, the Board of Selectmen will do this through the budget process, to help us size what's appropriate for the community and represents the priorities from the community. Finally, the one large item that I did embed in the budget is a call for a new police officer. And this goes back to a 1994 study. And it said in 1994 that we should consider 2 to 3 additional officers. We have not, but I believe it's time. The lack of supervision on the second shift and the overnights really calls out for additional. There's unfortunately a liability exposure if anything were to happen on those shifts without the proper supervision. Additionally, I think you're going to see on the Board of Education side calls for a school resource officer. I've had a discussion with Sherry. The chief and I do support the school resource officer, but the school board should be paying that. There will be, if in fact it comes to fruition, there will be an agreement under Connecticut state statute. That agreement has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. So the police chief would go into negotiations with the board and make sure that the police chief's officer and the training and the responsibility and the deployment is under the control of the Granby Police Department. That will come in the form of a memorandum of understanding that this board will approve, and only after the funding is put into place by the board of Education and the memorandum of understanding is approved by the Board of Selectmen can this initiative move forward. Overall, as I summarize, fiscal year 25 compared to fiscal year 26 is up by $366,000. That's 2.04%, and that's 2.4 of the town budget, a 0.9% decrease in debt service, and a 2.1 increase in the capital budget. With respect to revenue, it's too early to call. We're waiting for the grand list to be compiled, but I fully expect, predominantly due to some of the growth that we have related to Station 280, that we should be pleasantly surprised when that growth comes in, when the grand list is sealed. Finally, some items that I'm looking at, I would like a more defined process to transfer general fund expenses to other funds. We have nearly 900,000 in the sewer fund, rightly so, but Kirk and Abby spend a little bit of their time, so there should be an allocation off of the general fund into that fund. The Park and Rec Fund, there's about 580,000 related to that. As I explained earlier in the evening, 9 months ago, we were considering leveling the playscape. Not sure, glad we did not make that decision. We now have that funding to really do something when the Parks and Recreation Master Plan comes in. That should be in April or May. And then finally, we've got a waste fund and a bond fund with additional funding in it. Lisa and Kirk also spend some time related to that. So there are ways we can possibly, in a very small way, lighten the general fund load on behalf of the others in a way where we don't compromise the long-term stability of those other funds. I've also noticed that we are short in custodial staff. I'll give you an idea. We have approximately 55,000 square feet of office space to take care of. The general national standard is somewhere between 11,000 and 18,000 square feet for each full-time custodian. We really have 3 part-time custodians, and then there's some laborers that get mixed in there for Public Works. What I don't think we're doing is we have as a revenue source the North Barn and Holcomb Farms. I do not believe we are allocating enough custodial support to properly keep that facility clean and operating. And again, if we do it right, we can enhance that number on the North Barn. But to properly take care of our facilities, you saw we took care of the animal shelter. That's in much better shape. That will need a weekly cleaning, just so we don't fall into where we were. So I'm looking at that. That would be a place that we could possibly invest, and possibly invest off budget cycle, because those are the positions that don't have to be involved in the particular budget. Kirk would like another Public Works laborer. I'm a little bit more conservative on that one. We added one last year. We have a new a set of supervisors over there that are learning their jobs. They're doing very well. We will probably in early January appoint the 5th supervisor for facilities, and I'd like those individuals to have 6 months to a year on the job before we really start looking at possibly adding another laborer. I want to make the case for it when it becomes appropriate. And finally, this should not be news to anybody, the Granby Ambulance Association. They've experienced higher labor and operating costs post-COVID. They are not all volunteers. They pay some of their advanced life support paramedics, upwards of $30 an hour. They also are getting lower insurance reimbursements, so they are on a precarious financial path. I estimate that without substantial new or recurring contributions by the service municipalities, and that's us, or operational service reductions, Granby Ambulance's solvency will be challenged in about 5 years. So I'd like to get that discussion on the floor. I have some thoughts. We'll PM that out in the future at a future budget meeting. That said, the numbers tell a story. We are fiscally prudent with the taxpayer dollars at just over 2%, 2.4 when you add in all types of, general government spending. We are looking for 1 new police officer. We've eliminated 2 positions, so in essence, we've offset any cost of a new officer with savings. And I have no doubt that there'll be some minor changes by the time we get to the budget workshops, but I think we'll be pleasantly surprised as to where the grand list is. So, Mark, I'll leave it at that. I'm certainly willing to take questions, but that's the metrics of the town at the moment, as also a forward look into the budget for July 1.
Thank you, Mike. That's very comprehensive. I do have some questions, but again, they're ones that I can get to you between now and our next meeting. I do want to say at first blush, I think you did a very good job with the team. I do think the community should consider adding an officer. I think it's time that we did it. And frankly, when we started talking about doing it, if you told me you would be able to do it and still be a 2.4% budget, I would have been surprised. So I think you guys have done a good job so far to get it to this point. The only thing I want to make clear, which I think is clear, but just to the public, and at the end of your memo, those other items requiring attention, none of those are currently in the budget, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, we'll just go down, we'll start with you, Mark. Anything at this point do you want to get on the table or make sure Mike's prepared for before we take action?
No, I just comment, this was a new format, or a changed format from last year. I like the level of detail that it includes in the information, and I'll just make sure that I'm ready for both when we submit it to the Board of Finance and also the 3-board meeting. Do we know when that's going to be in January?
So according to the draft, so the last page of this agenda item backup has they call it a draft budget calendar, but there's not a lot of room for movement. There never really is based on our meeting schedule. So although we have not called the 3-board meeting, it looks like we're looking to do that on the 21st of January. That will need to be on our agenda, Mike, on the first meeting in January. So we would take action on the +1, but also to set and call the 3-board hearing.
Okay.
And again, maybe we could get Kathy to send notice to the members to say, hold that date. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did, thank you.
Peggy?
This is very helpful. It's just nice to start with a nice detailed overview like this. And looking forward to the next steps.
Thank you.
Same thing, I like the format, I like the year-over-year comparison to show the changes, so very helpful.
Same, yeah, thanks for the new format.
So Mike, ideally, when would you want any questions from us to be ready for our January meeting?
Within the, next couple of weeks.
So prior to our Christmas holiday, if you have any
That'd be
specific questions you want Mike to be prepared for. Okay, anything else on the +1? All right, we'll move on to item D, which is approval of the finance job descriptions.
So, Mark, Kimmy is on the line, and before I turn it over to Kimmy, I'll do a brief update, but I also want to relate it to the prior item, the +1. Shout out to Kimmy for running all the reports I needed and more to get to the level of detail that sufficiently tells a story, as well as Betsy. So, again, I depend on all the employees, but in particular for this assignment, Kimmy and Betsy, that's most appreciated. Finance Department job descriptions, there are 5 before you. Much like prior job descriptions where we've done GMEA for various impacts related to the reorganization, and we did public works related to various impacts related to the reorganization. This is unrelated to the reorganization, and this is Kimmy just getting in front of the work and working with Krista to review the 5 Finance Department job descriptions. Now, I want to caution everybody, we do not have all these positions filled, nor do we expect to fill them. 3 of the 5 are filled. The other 2 would be promotional opportunities for the 2 incumbents if at a point in time, subject to the budget process, Kimmy said, hey, listen, this individual has been doing yeoman's work and should move to this. This allowed Kimmy and Krista to take some very old job descriptions, update them for current language, whether that be FMLA or job duties, as well as create a path for future growth in the event that we needed it. So Kimmy, that was my opening comment. I'll turn it over to you. in case you want to make any additional comments.
I don't have additional comment, but I'm here to take any questions.
Thank you, Kimmy. I will say again, thank you for, again, whether we haven't been specifically following our goals and objectives that we spent some time drafting and mostly adopting. But I will remind you that this was on that list, to do a comprehensive review of every position in the town and look at the job descriptions, make sure they're up to date, make sure there's no overlap. And so another great step to getting that done. So I'm appreciative of all the hard work you guys put into it.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
These look great. They look very professional, updated.
You want to turn that into the proposed motion then?
Sure. I'll move that the Board of Selectmen approve the 5 amended Finance Department job descriptions presented in the November 25th, 2024 memo from Town Manager Mike Walsh.
Second the motion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, that motion carried. We're on to the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mark. Again, this is my report as of November 30th, and that means since it's the first meeting, it represents departmental activities completed by all the directors that work for the town of Granby. And they do quite a bit of very good work that the community should know about. So highly recommend anybody who's interested in knowing a little bit more about what your taxpayer dollars are spent on, go out to the website, go out to the agenda, and you'll see this as an attachment. From the town manager's office, we began the departmental meetings and completed them on the fiscal 26 budget, and that's using the new ClearGov software. So now we have to pull that all together and create, budget documents from it. You've received the +1 document tonight. The town officially acquired 87 Simsbury Road, which is the Methodist Church, so that is now in our fold. On the 4th, which I think is Wednesday, we start the business case for what comes next for that facility. Led by Mark, the town continues to prepare for the KCE Battery Project Siting Council presentation. The original meeting on 11/19 allowed the petitioner, KCE, to put on their experts and explain why it's a great project for the town of Granby. We, on December 10th, will have the opportunity to put on our case and support those things which we think are of concern. We've completed all Kern's informal interviews on January 13th. If you can set that date aside, that's the second Tuesday. There'll be formal presentations of 3 submitters. Each submitter is very, very different. That will start at 6 p.m. and they'll run about every 40 minutes. We participated in a CROG electricity auction, and thank you to the Board of Education and Kimmy and Betsy. We locked in all energy prices, which you saw built into the +1 budget. I attended the town clock unveiling. Mark was there as well. Thank you to Deb Kolwich, and in the future, we'll do something a little bit more formal. We completed PowerPoints on the Lost Acres Fire Department and Granby Ambulance. That's for the upcoming budget. I met with the Meadow Committee. I call them the Meadow Committee. And in order to more fully establish the Meadow, they're working with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection for a possible meadow burn in 2025. So if that comes to fruition, it'll probably be a Saturday, and we'll probably use the Emergency Operations Center to scale up a response. Hopefully, nothing bad happens. I'm certain it'll be controlled, but that's a good opportunity to practice our skill set. I worked with other towns towards supporting the CLEAR program, and Sandy Yost and Chief Sansom are interested in bringing that program. It's basically embedding a social worker with some mental health skills into our both counseling section and our police department. because we often go to the same houses many, many times, and sometimes with bad outcomes. This hopes to change that outlook in some situations. And as you approve tonight, a donation policy for your approval, and then we received one gift donation request. With respect to Kimmy and Sue and Lauren, they're in the process of completing the 2023 motor vehicle supplement. That will add about $15 million in assessment and result in about $493,000 of additional taxes being collected. Kimmy is navigating and Sue are navigating the new state statute regarding the property exemption for 100% permanently and totally disabled service-connected veterans. This will have a material impact on our budget that we're estimating could be north of $100,000. So this was a additional statute that the town is mandated to follow by our state legislature. Kimmy also met with Kerma for the 26 renewal. She revised the job descriptions, which, thank you, you approved tonight. She assisted the Board of Ed with the high school roof grant reimbursement and working with IT, and we will be getting cyber insurance, and they're working toward that end. There's a number of boxes we have to check. John Lambert for information technology has done a considerable amount of support for the town. A few things that I'll highlight is the Town Hall Meeting Room AV project, the Senior Center AV project. We will probably, by the end of February, have a secondary location so that when this room is used for early voting, we can take our meetings over there and not miss a beat for the residents who depend on them. John was assisting Kimmy, and they're working on the rollout of the digital documentation conversion. My understanding is the board has it, so John has been helpful as Kimmy works to install it. With respect to the police department, they had the drug take-back, yielded 145 pounds of prescription drugs. They stuffed a cruiser event on a Sunday at Stop and Shop. That included 4 truckloads of food and sundries delivered to the Farmington Valley Food Bank. And one sergeant and one officer, Officer Abalon, attended public information officer training at WFSB. Finally, cameras were installed at the animal shelter and vehicle impound lot. New high-density storage system for the evidence room is on order related to the ARPA project. And finally, ballistic shields are now present in each patrol vehicle. With respect to crime, car fire on Barkhamsted Road. Unfortunately, the individual had many rounds of ammo inside and they exploded during the fire, creating an additional hazard for both our officers and for our firefighters. Finally, reports of fraud to the police department are on the rise and mostly are computer related. Jumping over to Public Works, preparations for leaf removal, tree trimming, and servicing of mowers as the cold air kind of saturates. We're supposed to get a plowable snow Wednesday into Thursday. So we're marking plow routes and we're getting ready for winter. An extensive amount of clearing and removal of debris was completed at the animal shelter. So kudos to Kirk, Betsy, and the men for getting that done. Phase 2 of the sewer flow study has been approved and is now underway. And all 2026 capital purchases and needs are being assessed by Public Works in preparation of the budget. Finalizing the last few departments, library had the second annual Granby Children's Book Festival. 1,000 guests attended the event, and Amber couldn't be more excited. Library patrons and staff are loving the brand new computers recently set up by IT, and that came about as a result of the PEGPESHA grant that was awarded in May. And finally, Cossett Library, again related to the ARPA project, has a brand new set of sidewalks throughout the whole complex. With respect to human resources, Krista posted the DPW facility supervisor open position. That's to internal candidates. That closed today, so we'll seek the hiring process. Posted for one van driver. And then Sandy Yost with respect to youth services, human services, parks and recreation, senior and social. They had presentations on the 2025 Colette tours. They're going to the Colorado Rockies and Discover Switzerland for anybody who may be able to fit that into their budget. Those who attended the Windsor Federal presentation on scams targeting seniors, now know how to better protect themselves, and that starts with never sharing your Social Security number over the phone. The Thanksgiving luncheon was served by our friends from the Flying Yankees, Airmen of Bradley National Guard, and they served to 120 people, while Mass Confusion lent a nice musical background to the event. And last but not least, the Youth Services Bureau is working on collaborating with the police department, ambulance, and fire, and the schools to hold a mock accident around prom season. So a lot going on, and I'd be remiss if I didn't wish everybody, as we enter the holiday season, and I won't steal Mark's thunder, but a lot of festivities going on soon.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Mike?
Where's the meadow that's being burned?
Across from
It's
the
the wildflower
Maple
area.
View, it's the wildflower.
Maple View.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, I have a couple items to report on under the first selectman report. First of all, we did do the ribbon cutting and the inaugural walk on the Salmon Brook Park. Thank you, Peggy and Mark, for joining. Looked like to me there were somewhere between 20 and 30 of the residents who came. It was really kind of cool. At least 4 dogs, 3 golden retrievers of the 4 dogs. But you can just see the value in that project. I'm glad that we moved forward with it. I want to thank our team, Mike and Sandy and the Public Works Department, and everybody who contributed to getting that project done and also getting the ribbon cutting ceremony set. You can really tell how it's kind of added some energy to the park and bringing some people into the park, especially some of our seniors who might not otherwise been there. It's a great project. So our annual holiday tree lighting and caroling event is this Saturday at 4:30. I'll be mad if you all aren't there. This year, generally, the plan is to gather, do some caroling, light the tree here, carol our way over to the green and light the second tree, because you guys are probably familiar at the town green, the American Legion donated a holiday tree over there. Light that tree, carol our way back through Stony Hill Village, and take everybody who wants to go with us in Stony Hill Village and end up at the Senior Center for some cookies and hot chocolate. So that's this Saturday, 4:30 out here in front. Santa will also be here on the fire truck for people that want to get their pictures taken with Santa. So excellent work by everybody involved. Please come if you can. Mike mentioned the battery project where, in my estimation, we're not quite halfway through the hearing yet. The first part of the hearing, as Mike said, the applicant made their presentation. Council asked them questions. We were just barely beginning to ask our questions of the applicant when they shut the hearing down to go into the public session where public could comment. I think there were maybe a dozen or so. I watched the entire public comment. There were maybe a dozen or so people who commented. There were a number who apparently had signed in to comment but then didn't participate. So it's the second half of the evidentiary hearing is scheduled for next Tuesday. We are prepared. I will tell you, our council and our experts, mostly who are doing this volunteer without charging the town, have done a great job helping us present our case. Don't know what the council will do, but I can assure you, I can look every citizen in their eye and say, we are doing everything we can to present our concerns. There's no question about that. We're not leaving anything left to do there at the end of this process. As Mike pointed out, but I do make sure you mark your calendars. So we on the request for proposals for the Kern School Development as Senior Housing, we're going to take 3 of the respondents and interview them in this room in a joint meeting between us and the Commission on Aging. The public will be, it'll be available to public both in person and on Zoom. They'll get to ask questions as well. That's a special meeting on January 13th. It was 6 o'clock. We're going to start a little early so that we have plenty of time. I don't think we're going to have a December 16th meeting. That looks like we are going to accomplish not having to meet on the 16th. And then finally, Zainab emailed me earlier in the day with her apologies. Today is her sister's birthday, and so they're celebrating her sister's birthday, and she couldn't attend. I'm not sure did she get these to you, Ben? All right. If not, she asked me to read her report, which I am happy to do. Band concert is this week on Thursday at 7 to 8 p.m. Make sure you come and show your support. The National Honor Society is hosting their annual volleyball night where students from any and every grade come together to form teams and compete with each other. That's a fundraiser, right, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the French Honor Society is having their induction ceremony next Wednesday, the 11th, from 6 to 7 p.m. Also, I was going to embarrass her if she was here, but she's not here, so we'll have to embarrass her. Saturday was Zainab's birthday. So, do you remember when you see her, wish her belated birthday wishes? All right, that's all I have. Go down, Mark.
No report from me, thank you.
Peggy?
I would just add that the basketball courts are also looking very
Yeah.
nice over at Samuelville Park.
One note on the basketball courts, the cold temperatures do not allow the texture that they are going to apply in the lining to stick, so that will be done in April when the weather warms up.
But you can play on them, Fred, just no lines.
Only twos then.
Every shot's up.
Fred?
Nothing for me.
All right, Ben?
All right, so I just have a couple, like, two things to add. So, I believe last week we we went to a stock market challenge it was at Stanley Black & Decker, with junior achievement. It was part of the Decker Club, and it was a great success. Our Granby team, we won the stock market challenge. They actually had like a mock room where you actually had to talk to a trader to trade your stock and try to get the most gains in a certain period of time. The big news on the sports part is that football has their playoff game tomorrow at Sheehan at 6:30. So that is a very exciting and going to be a very hard competitive game. And then also the other big announcement is that the theater department for their spring musical, they're doing Legally Blonde. So they've announced the actual subject. I'll tell you the times when it actually comes out in the spring, but everyone's excited, and I'm sure the casting, they'll be doing that in the next coming weeks.
Ben, where is Sheehan located?
Ooh, I don't know my geography that much.
Okay. We could look it up.
Yeah. Ben, I know you guys are really busy, but your guys' perspective on the proposals for senior housing matters to us.
Okay.
So if you can get here on the 13th, even though it's a special meeting on the 6th, I'd be grateful.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll try.
If Google is correct, we are playing the Mark T. Sheehan High School in Wallingford.
Yes, that sounds, all I know is it's far away.
All right, any questions for Ben? If not, we'll move to the public session portion of our agenda that, Shirley, you're the only member in the room. Do you have anything you want to raise? All right, we'll go to Zoom. Susan and Bill, I think you're the only ones on Zoom. Do you have anything you'd like to address in the public session?
No, we're all set, Mark, thank you, and do feel that my financial report, the Board of Education should take a hit from him.
All right, thank you, happy holidays. We'll close the public session. We have no reason for an executive session that I know of. I will accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll see you guys all on Saturday.